Welcome to the Friends in Business podcast with your hosts, Ben Wright and Jemimah Ashleigh. Ben, known as the sales strategist, and Jemimah, our resident visibility expert, are here to share their wealth of knowledge and experience with a little fun along the way. Whether you're a leader, entrepreneur, or aspiring business owner, this is the podcast where we share everything we know about business to help you succeed. Let's get started. Welcome to the Friends in Business podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Friends in Business podcast with my wonderful co-host, Jemimah Ashleigh. I feel like saying at Jemimah Ashleigh, but
at Jemimah Ashleigh.
Is that what's your LinkedIn, your Instagram hashtag?
Yeah, it is.
At Jemimah Ashleigh.
Yeah.
JEMIMAHASHLEIGH. There you go.
We have B and RITE with us.
I'm Jemimah.
Oh, no, not right. Not right.
And she
I've made a mistake.
And you know that's not how we spell.
WRIGHT. Right.
Yeah, I'm not a big Instagram proponent, I must say. Most of my stuff's on LinkedIn. So nice to see you in person, Jemimah, because I know you've been living a heavy virtual life the last few weeks. Like this could go anywhere. Tell me about it.
The last few weeks have been, we've obviously been doing a lot of catch-ups via Zoom ahead of recording, but I've been in the middle of a virtual running race at the moment. I'm currently doing a 4,000 kilometre trail like a goose.
Oh.
Yeah.
4,000 Ks. How long
it's the
will that take?
Pacific Crest Trail. With my current rate, 9 years. No, I'm kidding. Probably about a year, probably just a little bit over a year.
A year? So you're doing 80 Ks a week?
Yeah. I like I said, just a bit over a year.
Yeah, well, 80 Ks is good going. I've never been able to get that high.
I did make a mistake when I got here, and I went for a run last night, and then I went for a run this morning, and I have forgotten to log those kilometres this morning on the phone.
Oh, little mistakes. They can be so frustrating, can't they?
I'm so upset. Ben, do you know how many kilometres that is? I have to go and redo them. So there's part of me going to be like, I forgot. Can I send you the map of where I went on the phone? Because you have to log everything as you're doing them. Do I think it's going to take me longer? Yes. I have 2 years to complete it though. So
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Still 40 Ks a week over 2 years. That's
a
what
lot
you've got to do to get through that. That is good going. And I tell you what, every K here is hard work.
It's 45 kilometres elsewhere on the planet.
The humidity this time of year is not significant. It's a hilly place.
My hair is growing by the second, even though we're in a cooler month. It's just I've given up and I'm just going with natural curl.
Yeah, well, you should see December. Well, you have seen December.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into today. What are we talking about?
Mistakes. I made a pretty silly little mistake. And I wanted today and it got me thinking as I'm looking at my phone going, I can't believe I've done that. We once recorded a whole episode that was unusable. We've made mistakes here. We've made mistakes in our businesses, in our personal lives. Yeah. I wanted to go through business mistakes today and going what's really been one of your biggest mistakes in business? But more importantly, how do you find the inspiration afterwards? Because there is this moment when you do make a mistake where I just wanted to cry I can just imagine your daughter finding me crying and she's like, what's wrong? At 5 years old, I'm like, I just didn't turn the app on. It feels like the end of the world. It's not really.
Yeah. Look, along the journey, we've had, all the businesses have made so many mistakes, right? We've had a small goods factory set on fire. We've had someone run himself over in a forklift, which wasn't. It was terrible. It was absolutely horrific. It was the worst moment I've had in business. It was complete user error, and we were investigated pretty heavily. But certainly see, you try and learn from those. I learnt the word of I learnt that biannual doesn't actually necessarily mean every second year.
It can mean twice a year.
Twice a year, yeah. And I got caught out on a sizable contract around some maintenance requirements there. I mean tens of thousands of dollars for each type of service. I think that mistake cost us $250,000 at one point in time. So I've made lots of those. But I would have to say the one that has stuck with me the most, and for those people listening who work with me and have had an experience around me advising on this, you'll really understand at this point in time why I do so. And for me, it's placing too much emphasis on the relationship. And what I mean by this is expecting that the strength of a relationship will lead to more sales happening, will lead to problems being resolved, will lead to one party not doing the wrong thing by the other. And I've learned the hard way. I've learned in all three of those instances, I've had sales not go ahead because either myself or team members have relied on the relationship. I have had issues arise because I relied on the relationship not allowing them to escalate, i.e., do you know what, we've got a strong relationship, they're not going to mind about this issue, we can carry on, right? And I've walked past it rather than going, no, hang on.
Walked it in and said, we've got a problem here.
Yep. And I have had, I've had people I do business with who I expected would do the right thing by me prove that the relationship is only worth so much. And that last one in particular, I've really suffered on, right? Expecting that people would look after me. And what I learned, and, you know, perhaps I was a bit naive, but what I learned is the hierarchy is really clear, right? It's other people, their families, their pockets, then things like your relationships start to come in, right? And there's a lot of times when themselves, their families, their pockets, right, will be far more impactful to them. And it might be disproportionate, right? It might be a small amount of money or a small impact on them, but a huge impact on you. And my experience is that even good people still find some of those decisions really hard. So I've learned the hard way there. I've seen people in business. I've seen people who work for companies. I've got a really good friend who was given equity in a business. The contract was a little bit loose. I advised him to tighten it up. He didn't. He said the relationship will be fine. He got absolutely worked over. I've had a client recently who bought a business. I helped him with his DD. He left two or three things out of the contract because the buy and sell period was getting a little bit long in the tooth. He left a few things out and said, they'll do the right thing by me. And my advice was, no, this is going to absolutely blow up. And it has blown up 3, 4, 5-fold over even what I expected to happen. And for me, it's just relying so heavily on a relationship blinds you, or puts your blinkers on is probably a more appropriate stance. It doesn't blind you to the big things, but it's certainly, you're running down that track or you're racing down that track and you're not seeing the signals that are coming in your peripheral vision.
Yeah, and I think all of this stuff is incredibly valid, and I think anyone that's done business with friends or has relationships with people they've gone into, you have to understand that at the end of the day, people are going to always go for their own best interest, and you have to plan for the worst on that. I know you, and you and I have very, very similar values, very, very similar sense of humor, but incredibly different as humans. What's made this really enjoyable is both of us went in going, okay, let's see how the other one, like we've matched each other on this one. When you come in with an established relationship, which we didn't really have too strongly of an established relationship coming into this, ours has developed that way. We came with an initial friendship and then started to do something together. You and I both took the same approach of let's just make sure everything is down the line. It's 50-50. We're never going to cross out of that. That's the plan. That's what we're doing. There was that verbal agreement in that. When you're coming in with an established best friend, very close relationship, you know the person, they've got my back. Be very careful with that. It is so incredibly dangerous to just assume that the relationship will be what it is.
Yeah, and I think for me, the way that I'm handling this these days, and look, I will say openly that I don't think I'm perfect either, but I certainly have had a scenario where doing the right thing by my business and the people in my business cost me millions of dollars, or it was going to cost me millions of dollars. That was the scenario. Do the right thing by 80 families, or do the right thing by me, make a couple of million, right? Or not lose a couple of million was probably a better example. And in the end, I chose to do the right thing by the business, and I don't regret it, but how much it cost me, I don't know. But it's certainly...
Don't do the math, you'll just get sad.
My life for the next 6 months was horrible, right? Really, really horrible. It culminated in an emergency appendectomy, right? That's how stressed I got. But And most of the people in that business don't know this, and you never know, one of them might be listening. But I had a couple of people in that business that really stood by me, and a couple that didn't. And for me, I don't regret how I worked through that, but certainly have learnt from it. And what I've learnt is that if you rely on the relationship, you're putting yourself at the risk of someone else, someone else's decisions or behaviours, which means you've lost control. So for me, what I do now when I have strong relationships is I am extra disciplined to treat them as any normal relationship would, right? And then if you need to do anything extra on top of that, you just do it, right? I work with people I know now, and they've been very gracious to allow me into their businesses, but I am super vigilant with these people to make sure I'm professional. I go the extra mile and I deliver the results to the best of my ability, right? Yeah. You can't always guarantee results, but I'm so grateful for them putting their faith in me that I actually want to work extra hard. But for me, my advice is if you have really close relationships out there, or you're doing business with family, or you believe things are going on in your business that will be okay because of the relationship, just to dig a little bit deeper and look into ways that you can protect yourself, protect your business, protect your friend or the other side of the relationship if it's a long-term customer or long-term business partner, right, and protect all of you. And then if something does go wrong, you've just got a default baseline to fall onto. But above everything else, both parties know that default's there, right? So they can't necessarily abuse
the key
that.
Things I need you to know before we go into this relationship is X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Do you agree to this? Yes, no, sign here.
Yeah. And a great piece of advice I got from one of my friends, Russell, was settle the divorce before you get married.
Yes.
Whether it's with customers, whether it's with business partners, whether it's with funding providers, staff, right? Get it all written down so you know that if something does go wrong, and it's really unfortunate that it does happen, that you know how you're going to behave. So
we also put that in place fairly early on as well. We've got emails back and forth of we've got that in place. Like, that's how seriously we take this, because both of us, and my story's not dissimilar to yours, we put that in place very, very early on. Like, if something happens, this is what's going to happen. It was very quick and easy to do, but it was like we settled how this will end way before it started.
And we have an offsite starting shortly. Right. We'll need to formalise that
of course.
Again, right, once that starts. And I mean, that's my bread and butter, right? So we'll roll that out pretty quickly. But so I think that's my biggest lesson.
Yeah.
And what I've really learned from, and maybe a little bit different to what people expected to hear. But tell me about yours, please.
Yeah, mine not dissimilar. So we didn't swap stories before we sat down, and you said, "Oh, mine's about relationships." I was like, "Oh God, mine is too," because I think that's also the most volatile thing about what we do. So can't probably give too many details about this, but I was working with a female person who we did a collaborative effort together. Where I made the mistake, we had, again, the same thing as you, very, very solid relationship. We had some agreements in place, what that would look like. We never set expectations of what we were trying to get out of it. And this became extremely problematic down the road. So this person and I had a podcast together, which was really, which was going really well. The issue that we ran into was we got a very good sponsorship deal on the table, worth very good money. And I said, I don't care how much it is, I'm in. The other person said, actually, it has to be this value or above. And that number was not insignificant. So I said, look, I'll float that if that's worst case scenario. I'll float 10 grand or whatever just to make this problem go away so we can sign the deal. And it was like, no, that's way less money than what we're asking for here. This was a really significant thing. And we just had to have this conversation, like, we're in such disagreement about what this could look like. I just saw this as such a marketing opportunity. They were like, this has to be the business, and it has to make this much, and it has to do this. I'm like, we should have other businesses outside of what we're doing. And it was just really different view of, and we had just drifted from the original idea. And where we'd made the mistake, and this was just exactly like, what is the expectation here? And that's the conversation even you and I had early on, like, what's our plan here? This is great, but what's next? This is brilliant. What else do you want to do with it? And it was just not having that clear, concise, and enough information at the time and enough expertise in business to go, actually, what I want and what you want is now extremely different. And then we're at this really, really interesting crossroad of, well, this is going really well, but we're actually not in this together anymore. We have taken very different routes. And having that discussion was really difficult because it felt like a breakup. And it felt like almost a divorce. Going, oh God, what do we do here? Like, we're in totally different mindsets. Do we dissolve this? Does one of us buy it? What does that look like? It was a really difficult time to kind of go, what do we do here?
What happened? Did you get the sponsorship?
No, because it was going to be the sponsorship that was offered was with an extremely well-known yogurt brand, and it was it was a lot less money than that the other person was expecting, and the deal got blown.
And podcast?
Sorry?
Podcast?
Dissolved. Yeah, pretty much immediately afterwards.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and it was an incredible opportunity. I could see the opportunity and going, this is just marketing that we can't even pay. And it was like, no, we need the dollar value. And so that was just going, oh, we didn't actually clarify enough what the other person needed from this. And there was this like, I need this or I'm not doing it. And whereas I am, let's just see what happens. It's like I'm a bit loosey-goosey with this stuff. I had another successful business sitting in the background. We were making cash. We were good. And this was like, no, it has to be this dollar value and what that looks like. And I think that really brought a lot of issues to a head, but that was the fundamental kind of issue we faced.
Yeah, right.
Later.
And what have you learned from it?
Biggest lesson for me was setting real expectations very, very quickly, and also knowing that when you're starting any collaborative project, that felt like what happens next? What's the next plan? When do we dissolve? When do we and being very honest about that conversation and taking emotions out of it. Because this felt very emotional and it actually shouldn't have been. It was a very easy cut and dry discussion, but because of the relationship, it muddied the waters.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So advice for people out there?
If you're going into business relationship with someone that you know, like, trust, care about, you have to plan for the end. Now, you have to have that discussion. If we're going to sell this, what does that look like? How much money what are the benchmarks? So great that we've done a podcast for a year, but we've always talked about doing offsites, which are happening shortly. We knew going in, okay, this is what this is going to look like. Setting that you have to have an intention for a business, even creative ones, which arguably this is a little bit. You need to have that driver ready to go, but also have exit ramps. You have to have, like, if we had like sold any of these offsites and no one had bought them, going, okay, well, this has been a really fun adventure. I've had a hoot. Let's maybe have a look at different ways of doing this. Like, we'd had that discussion early on. I think you plan for the end. So am I going to sell it? Do we close? Do we liquidate? You need to make sure that you've taken care of yourself and knowing what your expectations are and knowing when you're going to cut and run if needed.
Yeah, that piece around planning for where that end journey is.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. And then that helps you, I think, stay aligned when you're picking up those pots of gold that I talk about all the time, right, along that journey. So, okay, excellent. Well, we've had reasonably similar mistakes. I think for you it's come from get really clear on expectations and get aligned on what you both want out of partnerships. For me, it's around documenting, right, what you do within your partnerships and not treating friendships as not giving them too much weight in business decisions, right? Still putting in good principles and processes. And I mean, today I'm very heavy on systems and processes, right? Perhaps that's driven that. So, okay, two really good pieces of learnings, I think, that hopefully will help those out there listening, right? My advice from this today is have a think if you have any of those scenarios in play in your business at the moment, right? And what you might be able to do to stop future problems, right? Use current person to not piss off future person. Current Ben, make sure current Ben doesn't do something that future Ben's going to regret, right? Get angry with or be annoyed about it being a mistake. So excellent. Good topic today, Jemimah. Look forward to seeing you. Our next few episodes are actually starting to roll some guests in.
Yeah, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So until next week, we've been your friends in business. Bye for now.
See you guys.
I've been tried and you know I've been tested.
Thank you for listening to the Friends in Business podcast. This episode was brought to you by your hosts, Ben Wright and Jemimah Ashleigh, recorded in beautiful Noosa, Queensland. For more insights and resources, visit Ben at strongersalesteams.com and Jemimah at jemimahashleigh.com. If today's podcast has helped you, we'd be so grateful if you could leave a review and share with someone you know. This will help more people in the world benefit from the hard work we're putting in to bring you the best content we possibly can.